Cool. Buenos dias, Puerto Rico. Thank you so much for having me. Tiene una isla muy bonita. And that's about the extent of my Spanish, so the rest will be in English. So I am so excited to be here and really excited to share a bit about my company, Kuli Kuli, and some of the lessons we've learned along the way and how I've gone from taking this from an idea, just 5 years ago, I was like many of the very small booths in the expo next door, to now a multi-million-dollar brand selling Moringa products and partnering with small farmers in about 11 different countries around the globe. So I want to talk a little bit about creating the brand, getting momentum, building it, and then I'll leave some time for questions at the end. So how many of you, just by a show of hands, have heard of Moringa before? All right, grows here in Puerto Rico. You may recognize the tree in the back of that slide. So I actually hadn't heard about Moringa until about 10 years ago. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Niger, West Africa. And I was in this really rural village with no electricity, no running water, and not a lot of healthy food. And as a vegetarian, I found that it was really difficult for me to find enough nutrients in my diet. And so I started to feel really weak and really tired all the time. And I asked some of the women in my village what I could eat that would make me feel better. And they reached up behind them, pulled these leaves off a tree, and handed it to me in this popular West African snack called Kuli Kuli. I had never heard of Moringa. I had never thought to eat tree leaves. But I trusted these women, and so I started eating it. And lo and behold, that Kuli Kuli Moringa snack made me feel so much better. It gave me the energy I needed. And I started to do some research. And I realized that Moringa is one of the most nutritious plants in the world. It's packed with calcium, iron, protein, and so many vitamins. And it's eaten all over the world. It's the national vegetable of the Philippines, where it's called malunggay. It's the drumstick tree in India, and it even grows here in Puerto Rico. But what I saw when I looked around was that very few people in my village were growing this tree and eating this tree. And when I talked to them about why, they said, well, it's a low-value crop. It's a weed. It's not something we really cultivate. And so I started asking, why not? Here's one of the most nutritious plants in the world that grows naturally in hot, dry places and grows in places like Niger, where I was living, that have really high rates of malnutrition. But nobody was eating it. So it felt like a real missed opportunity. And so what the women in my village taught me is they said, we're not going to grow a crop that we can't sell. I think anyone who is involved in agriculture will relate to that. If you can't sell it, why would you spend all of your resources growing it? But they said, if you can help us create a market for this plant, we'll grow more of it, we'll eat it because we're growing it, and then we can earn a sustainable livelihood planting millions of these Moringa trees. So with that idea, I started partnering with these women, starting with this women's cooperative in Ghana, operating at a very small scale, and came back to the US to really test out this idea. And what I found was that so many of us know that we should be eating more greens. I think you see this in the rise of green juices, green smoothies. We know that greens are good for us. But very few of us have time to stop and eat a salad. And so I saw this market opportunity in here's one of the most nutritious greens in the world. So how can I create it into a product that Americans and other people around the world will enjoy? Started off very small. And actually, that ended up being a really powerful thing. I think sometimes I talk to entrepreneurs and they're like, I'm really small right now, but I'm going to get big, and they're sort of ashamed of being small. But starting small was actually the best way that we could have started, because we were able to iterate and we were able to test and we were able to really understand the market before we launched into it. And so together with a few childhood friends who had experience in food and experience in tech, we started making these Moringa bars by hand. And we tested them out. Is this better? Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks. So we started making these Moringa bars by hand, spending all day Saturday making them in a commercial kitchen, and then all day Sunday selling them on the market. And we weren't just selling them, we were surveying everyone who came by. We said, is this, man, woman, marking down their gender, approximating their age, figuring out, did they like it? What did they like about it? What did they not like about it? And then did they buy it? And so from that, we were able to get a sense of our conversion rate from sampling to selling. And we knew that the benchmark was about 10%. If we could get 10% of the people who sampled to purchase, that would be a really good product. And we found we were getting about 20% of the people there, and that people were really interested. And so that gave us enough momentum to really start to try to get onto the market. So initially, we launched into one store in Whole Foods, and I realized that I needed to quit my day job, and that my new job was this very glamorous CEO life of driving around small store to small store, convincing them to bring in these Moringa bars. And then, once they brought them in, standing there all day, passing out samples to customers and getting people to purchase it. So it wasn't the most glamorous life, but it paid off. So over the past 5 years, we've grown to where we're now selling Moringa bars, Moringa powder, and Moringa energy shots in about 7,000 stores nationwide. So we're working with everyone from Whole Foods to Safeway to Costco to CVS. And we've learned a few things along that journey. The first thing we learned was that it takes a lot of money to launch a food business. And when I first came back from the Peace Corps, I started talking to investors, and a lot of folks said, you're 22, you've never started a business, you don't know anything about the food industry. In no world are we going to invest in this. And so I realized that I couldn't rely on investors right away, that I was going to have to be really creative in how we financed this. And so initially, we did it all through the crowd. So we did a crowdfunding campaign on Indiegogo, where it was 800 people put in an average donation of $25, and people from 23 different countries. And the thing that was pretty exciting about that for me was that I didn't know all these people. These people were, many of them, total strangers. But they were excited enough about the potential in Moringa and the opportunity to use this plant to improve nutrition and livelihoods around the world, excited enough about that they would put real money behind it. So that gave us the initial traction we needed. From there, we started approaching celebrities and bigger investors and telling our story. And we were able to do really cool partnerships, like a partnership with Chef Jose Andres, where we worked with him to create a recipe contest with Moringa and got hundreds of people to create recipes with Moringa on Instagram. And then his team judged them, and the winner, we flew out to dine with him at one of his restaurants. We also attracted some funding from some larger corporations, like Kellogg Company, who's now one of our largest investors. But it all started very small. And then as we were thinking about taking on investment, we realized that we didn't want to be just another food company, that fundamentally we wanted to build this business differently. So as many of you know, most companies are structured as C corporations. And within that legal structure, you have a duty to maximize profit. But for me, I knew that maybe I didn't want to just maximize profit. Maybe I needed to pay farmers above market prices for Moringa. And I wanted to be able to invest in those communities. And maybe that would mean taking a lower profit margin, but creating a bigger impact. And so we actually ended up registering as a benefit corporation. And so now in Kuli Kuli's legal structure, we have a duty to not just maximize profit, but also to maximize impact. And it's an increasingly popular type of structure that you see everyone from Patagonia to Kickstarter to Plum Organics is using this new structure to really emphasize that they are using business as a tool for good. And I truly believe that doing that has helped us so much as a brand. And at the end, I think it will actually make us a more profitable business. Leading with impact and telling that story has gotten so many people excited about what we're doing and excited to not just purchase a product, but to purchase a product that's helping to create a better world. And so we tell the story of, you purchase this product, you're helping to support small farmers, you're helping to plant trees, and you're helping to improve nutrition and income in some of the poorest communities in the world. And that story resonates. So we've spent less than $50,000 on PR over the past 5 years, but we've been featured in over 300 media publications, everywhere from MSNBC Morning Joe to Fox News to magazines all over the world. And I think that story and that authenticity is really what's gotten us that amazing press and that amazing support. We've gotten some recent headlines and even have had some videos go viral about us on social media. But I think the most important thing for me and the thing that motivates me and my team is really remembering why we exist. And so I try to take as much time as I can to get out there in the field, to meet with our farmers, and to understand their needs and understand what we as a business can do to support them and grow with them. Because that's what it's all about. And I think that is something that has allowed us to attract amazing people on our team, many of them who've taken salary cuts for much bigger companies to come work with us, and attract so many great investors and supporters. And so I strongly encourage all of you to think about how your business idea can not just be profitable and have an amazing financial impact, but also how it can have a positive impact on the planet and the people around it. So I want to pause there because I know there are so many entrepreneurs in this room and want to leave some time for questions. So I think you can just raise your hand. I can see you all. Yeah.
I'll get another microphone really quick. How are you? Thanks for being here today. I have a question. Do you have any growers in Puerto Rico?
So we are very excited. So the question was, do we have any growers in Puerto Rico? Not yet. We are currently sourcing from about 11 different countries, so a lot in Africa, a lot in South America, and working in Haiti as well. And just with AgroCon, coming here, we've had so many amazing Puerto Rican farmers reaching out to us and telling us about their moringa operations. And I think, we see an incredible opportunity to start sourcing moringa here. I think the biggest thing we found is that there's a lot of people growing moringa. There's not a lot of people who are processing it here. And so to us, that's the next step, because we actually manufacture in country. So the first stage of processing from, taking the leaves off the tree, washing them, drying them, and milling them into a powder, all happens in country. And so finding people who, don't just want to grow moringa, but also want to process it in a way that is, compliant with US quality standards is something that we'd love to partner with folks on.
Hello.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little more about the oil structure you guys have to maximize impact?
Yeah, so the legal structure we have is called a benefit corporation, and it's a relatively new type of legal structure. So there are now ways to register as a benefit corporation everywhere from Delaware to California to many other states. I don't know the laws as well here in Puerto Rico, but I know if you sort of Google benefit corporation, there's a whole toolkit online that can help you understand what that could look like.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
So how much land would you need to make it a profitable moringa farm?
Yes, it's a good question. So the land size that we work with varies quite a bit. There are some people that just have a couple acres and are growing moringa very intensely, which works pretty well. And then there are some people who have a lot more space and are sort of intercropping moringa with other plants. So it depends a bit on the climate, but it does vary quite a bit by region. I think we have time for one more question.
Good afternoon, Lisa. Thank you for visiting Puerto Rico. Are you going to be here today during the expo to ask you other questions and any other information?
Yes, I will be here all day. Please come find me. I would love to talk with
Certainly.
everyone.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.